And now it's time for our news review. French far-right leader Marine Le Pen has called for a referendum on key issues such as immigration, healthcare, and security to break the political deadlock in the country. Le Pen said President Emmanuel Macron has created chaos in France, but has the levers to keep democracy alive in the country. She pointed to Macron's controversial decision to appoint center-right Michel Barnier as prime minister. Le Pen said she would not hesitate to censure the government if the French are once again forgotten or mistreated. Mass protests erupted across France after Macron appointed Barnier as premier. The political left accuses Macron of stealing the July elections. The left-wing New Popular Front alliance came on top of the vote, but it resulted in a hung parliament. I'd like to welcome my guests to this news review. Mustafa Trial academic and political commentator out of Paris, and Tony Gosling, historian and investigative journalist out of Bristol. Thank you so much for being with us. So let's start this off with Mustafa. In Paris, I mean, there's some that say that a coup has taken place inside of France. I mean, what's your assessment of what has taken place since the elections until now?
Yes, I too define it as what we call a constitutional coup. And it is very funny because this is something that we usually see in African countries. And it seems that the way I explain this is that what goes around comes around. We very often in France favor governments in Africa that behave just like Macron behaved in France with the elections and with naming the prime minister from the right. So it is just, yes, what we do to other countries. It seems that now it's happening, this one is happening here in France. And it could be explained by the Constitution. So I describe it as a constitutional coup. It is obvious, and I think that we French people will have to deal with it. I think that it is very easy to say that Macron is the only responsible for the situation. He came to power because we elected him, we trusted him, so he is doing what the vast majority of French people want, in my opinion. And I think we should not fool ourselves. I know that what is happening is very strange, but if we analyze and speak with most French people, the vast majority of French people do support what is happening, because they have in the French mindset there are two enemies in France, the far left and Marine Le Pen. So they think that any candidate or any politician is better than the two political parties, the far left or the left, okay, and the political party of Marine Le Pen.
Well, what's your perspective about that? Turn to Bristol now. You've just heard Mustafa talk about the overall situation and what's happening, Tony. But your take on why this has taken place, and really, what does it mean?
Well, look, the origin of this whole idea of left and right, it comes from the French. The left and right side of the Seine, the River Seine, is one of the places where we first started talking about this concept. And the idea is to describe the way that the politics is laid out as either left or right. But if you look at the results of the recent snap general election in France, you'll see that the left actually were the clear winners. The right, so with 188 seats, the right had 142, they were the bottom, and the so-called centre 161, so they were kind of in the middle. But the fact is, the centre is not really the centre. The centre is the extremists. The centre are the people who are supporting, for example, the war in Ukraine. They're supporting the Ukrainians. Generally speaking, although this isn't so strong in France as it is in Britain, the centre is also supporting the Israelis in the genocide that's going on. So you actually have, what you've got is people are kind of being bamboozled into thinking this kind of left and right. But actually what happened is both the left and the right, who together have a vast majority over the centre, they have a completely different view of the foreign policy. So from us looking in from outside into France, it is really perverse that Macron has chosen his own centrists to lead the government as the new prime minister. Now, this is an immense amount of power that he's given to a party that actually only came, or an alliance and a group that only came second in these elections. Of course, if he was a fair-minded man, he would have given the job of prime minister to somebody from the left alliance, but he didn't do that. This guy Barnier, by the way, that is now supposedly the prime minister there, is the one who we were grappling with in the Brexit negotiations. That is really the latter part from 2016 right the way through to 2021. And he's somebody who is also allied to the globalists, the people across the West who are basically pro-NATO. And so what we've got, of course, is an election which has not produced leadership that the people asked for. That's why we've seen demonstrations out on the streets in France and in many other countries in the West, because this is the way that they're doing business. They are making sure that the big business, the war machine basically gets its people in charge.
Well, Mustafa, just about a minute. Where do you see this going? It just seems to be just total chaos right now. I mean, your assessment, and where do you see this going?
I think that we will have some demonstrations, very strong demonstrations by December, and like the same type of demonstrations we had with the Yellow Vest movement. So, of course, it's not good for the French economy, and I think that the French economy is going to suffer. And there is a risk. The risk is that Macron could lose the power. He could be toppled. That's a possibility. But for the short term, what I see is lots of demonstrations, and maybe the country is going to be stuck for a while in January, I think.
Okay. Well, Tony, 30 seconds. I saw you shaking your head. Let me give you 30 seconds. Go ahead.
Well, look, Macron is called in France the petit roi, that is the little king. So they haven't really had a revolution at all. What they've done is they've got a succession of really elitists who are now running the country. Many of those demonstrating have got this petit roi on their signs. They don't see him as representing the people at all. And in fact, I think that they want to have another revolution or something in France in order to actually get what they want. Remember, of course, Macron is a former banker, an employee of the Rothschild Empire, who came almost out of nowhere to become president. And that is because he had a lot of money behind him, and of course he had the French mass media supporting him. And you know, there's very few groups in France in the media that are really anti-Macron. One of them, by the way, is the free speech that you're getting on Telegram. And isn't it funny? Macron is now trying anyway to put the boss of Telegram in prison. So they're trying to control the politics by controlling what people are allowed to see and think. And every journalist in the world needs to be concerned about that.
All right. And on that note, I thank both of you for being with me on this news review out of Paris. Mustafa Traore, academic and political commentator, and Tony Gosselin, historian and investigative journalist out of Bristol. And thank you, viewers, for being with us on another news review.